Hello, everybody. Welcome to our unscheduled Saturday edition of Jimmy's Fireside Chat. This is a simulcast, as many of you know, between YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter Live. Now known as X Live, I guess we call it. Yeah. Anyway, it's February 1, and everyone has to make their housing payment. Yep. I've made ours. Here we go. The Seminole Tribal Fair and powwow. Marilyn is down there at the Hard Rock watching her sister dance around. Marilyn, as you know, is an Oneida Indian, or at least half of her is. She's 50%. The other 50% is Scots-Irish, coming from her father. Her mother is a 100% Indian, part of the Oneida tribe, which started in New York State and migrated over to, the Wisconsin, Milwaukee area. And it's funny, when I first met Marilyn 44 years ago, actually it'd be 45 years ago in a few days, because I met Marilyn on the 22nd of February, 1980. I was facilitating an important corporate meeting that Royal Trust had, where they selected people from all over the state of Florida, which is where Royal Trust had, something on the order of 33, 34 branches. And a memo was sent out to the managers of departments all over the state, where they said, pick somebody, in your area of influence that you believe is going to run the department, 5 or 10 years from now. Who's going to be running the bank 10 years from now? And we want to fly them down to Miami and have them participate in an all-week seminar all day long. You have to stay in the hotel. Hotel rooms have already been arranged. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we pay, meaning Royal Trust Bank. And, so that's how the participants were selected. Marilyn was one of them, from the international department, which was a rather large department, handling. Marilyn was in charge of Central and South America. How about that? That's quite a territory, huh? She almost became semi-fluent in Spanish. And then, so how did Jimmy fit into the picture? Well, Jerry Gilliam met with personnel department. My boss, Robert Curtis, who was the chief credit officer for the whole bank, and they huddled and said, okay, we need 8 people that are going to facilitate this all week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday seminar, exchange of thought, if you will. So Bob Curtis came to me and said, come on, Jimmy, we want you to be part of the... And I said, Bob, geez, really? I said, I just went through a very stressful divorce. And, God, well, it'd be good for you. Keep your mind occupied. So I wiggled a little bit more. And Bob looked at me and says, look, I've already promised you're going to do this to Jerry Gilliam. Don't make me have to go back to him and pull you out of this. I said, okay. All right, I'll do it. Well, yeah, well, apparently Marilyn went to her boss, McCluskey, and said the same thing. He said, do I really have to do this? I've just gone through a terrible divorce. And McCluskey said, you're going. And now, I never really formally met Marilyn. Matter of fact, I didn't even know she was in the program, until it was all over. I just, I'm doing my thing, and quite frankly, I don't remember exactly what I talked about. So at the end of the thing, at the end of the seminar, it's pretty important when a bank, takes over 40 rooms in a hotel and feeds you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All expense paid, the airplane tickets, to and from Miami, Florida. I lived, 30 minutes away in a car, so I didn't need a plane. And Marilyn lived 30 minutes, south of the Rivergate Hotel, the Sheraton Rivergate Hotel. I believe today it's still a Sheraton Rivergate Hotel. Anyway, so when it was all over, so that's, I had a half-day session, I think, on Thursday. And there were 8 of us that did half-day talks. Anyway, so that was all. Everyone, like at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock after lunch, everybody was permitted to go back to their rooms, check out, get your bags, and come down to the Daphne, I think it was called the Daphne Bar, and at the Rivergate Hotel where they were staying. But check out and bring your bags and come to the Daphne Lounge, and it's a big lounge. Seats like 70 or 80 people. Probably a 14-seat bar, and cocktail waitresses running all over the place. Anyway, so at 4 o'clock, everyone had to assemble in Daphne's. And, like 8 important dignitaries from Royal Trustco in Canada flew into town to have a chat with these folks at 4 o'clock. about how important this last thing is, and all you people are basically running, Royal Trust Bank. And we're delighted to have you. And this was an enrichment program that we've given, all the executives, in Canada. And after all, it is a $35 billion institution in the aggregate. And you all down here represent a very sizable piece of the profits of the global institution. So they're, talking it up and making everybody feel important. And, one or two of these guys signed their, diplomas graduating from this, senior executive training exchange program, exchange of ideas. So that's nice. Everyone, came up and got their names were called out, and they went up and got their thing. And it was like 40 people, plus 8 of us that were facilitating the training exercise. And as I remember, they handed us out a good size. We have Jimmy join the program here. Hey, there I am. Yeah. So they handed us out a 50-page package that we had to read, understand, and we divided that package up into 8 pieces, and everyone took a half a day. And I think I was, I had a Thursday, I'm going to say Thursday morning session, and someone else had Thursday, a Monday afternoon session. Then you had Tuesday morning and afternoon, Wednesday morning and afternoon, Thursday morning and afternoon, and then the at the end, then we had the celebrities come down and hand out the diplomas, certificate of completion, which was highly recognized in the Royal Trust system. So, you could go anywhere where Royal Trust had operations, and join the team or wherever in some kind of, management spot. If it became open, and if whatever approving authority would approve you to, join the crowd in that particular geography. Anyway, so that made everyone feel good. And then then it was an open bar. The Royal Trust crowd. So, you had 40, and you had the 8 of us, and plus 2, that's 50. And some of the Royal Trust senior people, Bob Curtis and Jerry Gilliam. So you had a couple of board members. So, 40, 50, 60. You had 60 or 65 people that were floating around in this Daphne's, beautiful, inside bar. Lots of seating, around the bar. Cocktail waitresses floating around. It was an open bar, so everyone was, having cocktails, wine, whatever. And then you'd hear, everyone, the Jacksonville flight, gather your belongings and please be at curbside. So shuttles can take you to your your debarkation point back to your city. So every 20 or 30 minutes you're, okay, Tampa, Florida, and the microphone. And then all the people from the Tampa market would get onto the shuttle and go over to their terminal for takeoff. And so the crowd kept on contracting. And I was sitting with Jill Thagard, the head of Treasury, and Karen Brown, the head of Human Resources, and myself were sitting at one table. So we had an empty seat over to my right. And they're on the square top table. Jill Thagard was sitting to my left. Karen Brown sitting across from me. And Marilyn was sitting. I didn't even know Marilyn. I saw her floating around in the bank, and I knew what her first name was, but never was formally introduced and never really said anything to her, for years. So, somewhere behind me, 8 or 10 tables away, and a lot of the people had exited. This is about 8 o'clock at night. And so that's 3 hours after the prizes were handed out. And so Marilyn walks over to the table from behind me and says, "Oh, may I join you?" So she sits down, over to my right side. I said, "Hi there." So I shook her hand and she shook my hand. That's the first time I was actually introduced to Marilyn. And she said, "Oh, you work over in the real estate department. I think I've seen you over in your office when I come up there delivering my packages to Jerry Gilliam, who's the chairman of the bank, because he would chair the loan committees when he was in Miami. I think he had an office in Jacksonville. I think he lived in the Jacksonville area. Yeah. So periodically, often actually, he would fly to Miami and spend, weekdays in Miami and then fly back to Jacksonville for the weekend. Anyway, so Marilyn sat down, and then the four of us are all yakking away. So that's like 8:15. That's a guess. Somewhere between 8 and 8:30. So about an hour and a half went by. So 8, 9, let's say an hour. So 9:15, and the two, Karen Brown and Jill Thagard, said, "Well, we think we're going to leave." We rode in together. They live in South Miami somewhere. And so, I got up and, said goodnight to them. Marilyn remained seated. So I sat back down next to Marilyn, and she had like half a glass of wine remaining in her glass, and I guess I don't know if I was drinking wine or vodkas and sodas, but anyway, I said, "Oh, would you like to stay for another glass of wine?" She said, "Yeah, I would actually." So I said, "Marvelous." So we carried on with conversation and introduced ourselves, so to speak, with a little more personal information. And who are you? Where are you? Da, da, da. And that was the beginning of the beginning. And so at around midnight, if I recall, we were done. The bill was paid by Rural Trust. We didn't eat. We just had more cocktails. I think they had like a buffet thing at the 4 o'clock event. Big piles of shrimp and scallops and, whatever. I know I had a couple of shrimps, big jumbos. Anyway, so at midnight I walked Marilyn back to her car, and then I walked back to my car, and I said, how about if I call you at 10 o'clock Monday morning to make a lunch date for Monday? So see if you can, have a little extended lunch. So we'll be somewhere for an hour and a half or so. Can you get McCluskey to give you a break on that? She said, oh yeah, I'll mention it to McCluskey, which was her boss, who was the manager of the international department. So that's what I did. I made reservations at the Charade, which is in Coral Gables, and Bob Curtis and Tony Romeo and myself, had lunch there several times. Beautiful place. It was like a house that the restaurateurs purchased or leased, and they took out most of the second floor of this house, opened the whole thing up. They had these palm trees going right up through the middle of it, big ones, and they created a balcony going all over, most of the restaurant, and had, tables around the balcony, which was the remaining part of the second floor that didn't get removed, and they finished it all off, and it was a beautiful place. So I made reservations for two at table 74 upstairs and on the balcony. So, of course, I picked Marilyn up, at 11:55. I said, so come on downstairs. I have a white car, white Mercedes 300D or something like that. And I said, a nice white. So just come on out and get in the car, and I'll take us to lunch, and then I'll ride you back here when we're done. So that's what I did. Picked her up, went to Charade, sat upstairs in this balcony so we could look down and see all the people eating below us. And we had a beautiful private lunch, just the two of us. And that was really the beginning of the beginning. Because we spent 2 hours there chatting a million miles away. And then when I dropped her off back to her office, I said, how about if you have any dinner plans? Let's have dinner. We just had lunch, so now we're going to have dinner. So then we had dinner at, I think it is at Crepe Saint Michel, which was, like one street away. It's on Ponce de Leon. No, wait a minute. Yeah, it was on Ponce de Leon. So we had private dinner, the two of us. Table number 11, which was it was like a triangular shaped restaurant. This is all the way in the point of the triangle, window seat to the street. But it's like one of the most private tables because there was only one table in the point, and then all the other tables, built out from there. So you're capable of having a pretty nice private dinner if you got that table number 11. I had, in the restaurants all over Miami, I had table numbers picked out in the restaurants that I liked. So anyway, so we were having breakfast, lunch, and dinners thereafter. It was we were like magnets, unbelievable. And we both just went through divorces, which were always very stressful, to complete, the legal processes. And, I had a personal attorney, Dan Pescio, who knew all the judges and everything in Broward County to consummate my divorce. And Marilyn had her attorney dealing with her paperwork and court stuff in Dade County, which is different than Broward County. Yeah, so anyway, that was all, by the time we met, that was all done. And the divorces had nothing to do with the two of us because we didn't even know each other until the divorces were signed, sealed, and delivered. So let me make that perfectly clear. We didn't divorce because of each other. We divorced because of the problems that we had independently of each other, because we didn't even know each other, truth be told. So anyway, now it's 45 years later, as of February 22nd, so actually 3 weeks before we can celebrate that anniversary. So we got two anniversaries. The anniversary of us first meeting each other, which is February 22nd, 1980, and then we got June 13th, which is actually when we got married. So, and that was 18 months, 14 months after we met. Anyway, so Marilyn's down at the Tribal Fair in Powwow at the Hard Rock, which is a big guitar restaurant. The Guitar Hotel. See that right there? The Guitar Hotel. And it's shaped like a giant guitar reaching into, the sky. And the Seminole Indian tribe they make in the casino that they have in Broward County, big casino, really popular. People from all over go there. And it's on tribal property, so they were exempt from having to deal with a lot of the Florida state laws, gambling and so forth. So, and I can write a book, but I do not know about the gambling regulations in Florida, Broward County, the Hard Rock or otherwise. But I do know, all right, I did hear that, if you hit the tribal, there's various tribes all over the state of Florida that, have been, they've negotiated with the state independently to, have their tribal property, which is, carved out of the state property. So the tribes each independently have their own rules and regulations on things, and anyway, so they built the Seminoles, built a big hotel and casino, on their tribal property. And it's a very successful casino, apparently. And they made about $500 million a year in net profits. So they saved up 2 years worth of their money, and they bought the entire Hard Rock, all the, all the operations that they had all over the world. But they didn't get the one in New York City. Apparently there's one in New York City, and I think there was one in London that the owners of the Hard Rock said, we'll sell you all of the Hard Rock, including this one in, the Seminole, whatever, for $980 million, just short of $1 billion. And the original Hard Rock owners retained New York and London. Apparently their board of directors or whatever, lived in London and New York. Money people. So that's what happened, 20 years ago or so. Anyway, so the Hard Rock, which you can see on this logoed material, the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Hollywood, Florida. SNP, the Seminole Media Productions Company. The Guitar Hotel, which is, connected with the Hard Rock. And there's the Seminole Tribe of Florida. They put together every year this tribal affair in powwow. So tribes from all over the United States and Canada, come down to this. It's a huge event. It's a really important event. So I think Maryland, let's see if I can find some of the pictures. Am I going in the right direction? Yeah, whoops. That's our leader. Let's look for tribal looking stuff. This is photos. I want, let's do videos. There we go. Whoops. There's, should be able to hear that. Play through. Because, anyway, you can see it's a big arena, and this is the grand entry, the beginning, essentially yesterday at 12:06 p.m. You can see it on the top, and all the tribal dancers, Marilyn's sister being one of them. They come in here. They're dancing and stepping, to the tribal drums that are set up somewhere, probably behind the camera. And it fills up this arena, big time with sound. I'm looking to see if Jane is back here. They're all lined up according to rank and, city. It's televised. You can see the big jumbotron over there to the left. Anyway, so this is Daniel watching. Wham! 322 yards. Phew. Club speed 120 miles an hour. Ball speed 180 miles an hour. Wham! It just happens to be part of a little video thing here. There's July 4th. Anyway, let's come back up here to photos. So, Elon Musk is creating a big ruckus in Washington. You gotta see, got the ear of the president, as you probably noticed, and he's giving him all kinds of ideas on, where he can optimize and not, you always hear the, I'm gonna cure the waste, fraud, and abuse of the taxation system in the United States, whether you're House of Representatives or Senators. Waste, fraud, and abuse is always on the list of things to do when if you elect me. Not me, but them. Anyway, so, Elon Musk hasn't been elected or anything, but because he helped Trump's campaign, they're pretty chummy. Trump has just, assumed the presidency, won, a big national election, and won it in a very big way, with 77 million Americans voting for him, and 74.5 million people voted for Kamala. Yeah. And so she lost. She lost all the swing states. She lost the Electoral College. They lost the Senate majority. They lost the House majority, and they lost the White House. So it was a trifecta for Trump, and it should have been, and it was. I remember looking at Maryland and the early returns, like at 7:15 in the evening, Tuesday evening. We both voted early the week before. It's the first time we've early voted, which is very nice, by the way. And Palm Beach County does a nice job in giving you the sensation that they've got everything in order, and they know how to count, and they have good systems, it seems like. I actually worked in the Palm Beach County for the supervisor of elections. I ran precinct 4222 in South Palm Beach County. And then I ran precinct 8222, something like that, I don't know. In Boynton Beach, I did that 2 years ago. Anyway, so having worked in the county system and been trained and went to their training classes, which were, pretty rigorous classes. It was serious business for them, which, I didn't know. So I decided to, do it as a, to get myself comfortable that Palm Beach County really knew what they were doing, and they did. They have. But there you can see our leader, Trump, and Elon Musk. So they're always quoting each other back and forth. And, but, Elon Musk contributed, $150 million towards $45 million a month for 5 months in cash. That's almost, somewhere around $200 million in money, helping Trump, with the money that you need to run a campaign for president. So they obviously got to know each other well, and Elon was totally on board with Trump, and it was in his opinion, a very consequential election because if Trump didn't get reelected or elected, because there's a 4-year pause where Biden and his minions ran the government, and in the opinion of Trump and his people, so they ran the government into the ground. So he signed, there he is in the Oval Office, and you can see these folders, these blue folders with the seals on the front. Inside those folders, like this attorney associate is handing Trump these executive orders that he has caused to be written, and executive actions. He signed like 300, they call them EOs. E for executive and O for orders, executive orders. So he signed like 300 EOs so far, maybe even a little more. So, so that's one thing going on. Just incidentally, Apple's iPhone 17, which comes out in September of this year. So Marilyn and I have iPhone 16s, so this is the 17. It's supposed to be thinner, a thinner phone. So instead of being 8.5 millimeters in thickness, it'll be like, they're calling one of the models the iPhone Air. I'd like to know the camera configuration of the iPhone Air. Right now we have the iPhone Pro Max, which has a 6.5-inch screen, and it's got these 3 camera configuration like you see on your screen here. iPhone 17 for their Pro Max will have the same 3 cameras. The one between those two, the camera to the right, that I'm putting my finger on, which you can see, that's the telephoto lens. And then one of these is ultra wide angle and the normal lens, normal wide angle telephoto. And this goes to like 5x optical zoom. Amazing. Is there anything other? So I have another. I thought I had another screen. Is this in here? Nope. I take these print screens. I do these print screens to remind me of things to talk about. And I'm trying to find the one that highlights the thinness of the iPhone 17. And I guess I have to page through this one by one to really find it, which I don't want to do, take up your time with that. Anyway, so iPhone 17 is supposedly going to come out with iPhone Air, which is only 5, and like 5.5 millimeters thin instead of 8.5 millimeters. So that's quite a reduction in thickness. So they must be really super miniaturizing the electronics and have a special battery arrangement, to power the screen, and to have it for an all-day operation. I'm probably going to stick with the, with this basic configuration, with the slightly thicker iPhone, so it'll be iPhone 17 Pro Max, and they'll have the iPhone 17 Air, which will be a super thin variety. So depending on what they do with the cameras, will either be 17 Air or the 17 Pro Max. We'll have to look at all the specifications, and that's the tribal thing right there, which I already showed you. And oh gosh. So, also in the news, you probably heard, about the helicopter. Now, this is my opinion. The news has not. The news is going to get where I'm indicating now. Because after watching the crash and hearing some of the data that's come out of, the investigations so far, not including, black boxes or anything, but, this passenger jet holding 60 people, 60, and a crew of 4 were, gliding into, landing into Washington National Airport. This Black Hawk helicopter comes and crashes into them. Well, when a jet airplane, I've been in private jets and commercial jets, big ones and little ones. And I have a couple of friends of mine that are pilots, and one of them actually owns a twin-engine Cessna 510, which is a highly respected, 8 or 10 passenger twin-engine jet. This friend of mine he's a licensed commercial pilot. He doesn't fly for the airlines. He flies his own plane. But he can take people for hire, because he's an FAA certified pilot. He's been a pilot for, I'm going to say 5 years or so. I've been on his, I've been in his plane, but I haven't flown with him. He's invited me to go here and there. But never got on a plane with him for no reason other than our calendars didn't match up or something like that. I've seen his wife has had has held like an iPhone over his shoulder, watching him land in the Fort Lauderdale airport and so forth. I have the video that someone made for him, which he gave me a copy of. That was the first time, the people that sold him the plane landed it in Opelika Airport for check-in, and had this gentleman walk all the way around the plane. Is like perfectly brand new looking. I mean, they polished that baby up big time. The engines and the avionics have always been under contract for service, by their OEM manufacturers. So That's what you always want to have when you buy an airplane. You want the engines to have always been under contract with the manufacturer of those engines. And then their serial number, they have their own, beacon sending the information back to the factory on how the engine is performing, and information that they're being serviced properly, and all this business. Yeah. So I've seen this plane, inside and out, but I haven't flown on it. Been invited a number of times and never done it. Yeah. So.
It's 1:30.
Kash Patel was right over the goals with the the Senate hearings. I believe has a second session today. He's the one that investigated the Crossfire Hurricane probe and found out that it was all a big fraud, that the Democratic Party paid certain people to say certain things, about the Trump, 2000 campaign, and it was all false, And so he led that investigation and exposed all these people that paid $7 million to, create this false dossier, and had the FBI, lie about the Hunter Biden's laptop, which was not disinformation. It was factual. And the FBI had, Hunter Biden's laptop for 7 years. They just locked it away and never did anything with it because they didn't want Trump to get reelected or elected. So they pretended the laptop never existed. And his son was involved in all kinds of shady dealings. And, there's the Indians dancing again. The tribal affair. Marilyn's meeting up with all her tribal relatives today and tonight. She's staying overnight in a local hotel down there. Here he's giving a speech. Those are my feet. With my new black shoes with the white soles. They're so popular these days. My son bought me a pair of shoes. Similar to his. Anyway, the Trump was giving a speech to the all the world leaders in Davos, which he couldn't attend because, he just got elected 3 days ago, so he couldn't go to Davos for a week, hobnobbing around with global leaders. So he made a presentation on television, closed circuit television, that was beamed right into Davos. It was a good speech. I heard the speech twice. And now here we are, the 1st of February. Those images were, the end of January. So now we're in the first day of February. 7:01 a.m. My phone woke me up at 6:30 roughly. By 7:01 I was up in the saddle. You can see my car is almost 3/4 of the way full tank, 3/4 full. You know, like with a gas tank, it's a circle with a car. It's showing that's the state of charge of the Tesla car. It's right on my phone. Yeah, I can touch that symbol, and then that whole application opens up, and you can see what the exact mileage you're going to get out of the energy that you have in the fuel tank, also known as the battery. I try to not use the word battery because I'm trying to get everybody on the way to thinking about, the fuel tank is just, it's just a different kind of fuel. It's not a aromatic hydrocarbon like gasoline, isooctane. It's electricity. So, you can fill up your fuel tank all the way to the tippy top. And you can run the fuel tank down to the last, when it's not on empty. You don't want to get to empty because you can't run around with a gallon full of electricity. So when you start to getting around below 20%, where you've used 80% of your fuel and you only have 20% left, then that circle would be a lot different. And that shows you it's around 75%, 70%. So even when your phone is, in sleep mode, although it said good morning, mostly sunny, high, it's currently 72, with a high of 80. And right now it's 78. You can see, if you can look real carefully where my finger's pointing, it's 78.8 outside and at 72.0 in our 8th floor studio setup I have here. It's a little private studio that I put together myself, because the 3 people that are running this outfit is me, myself, and I. So myself put together this arrangement, and I am the talent, in quotation marks, and myself is the producer that handles all the special effects. Like if you want to go full screen on these pictures, or do you want to have Jimmy join in on the fun, or we can make Jimmy all the fun. Yes, sirree, Bob. There we go. And this is you can see there's a slight delay. This is my MacBook Pro, and over here is my soundboard. You can see the top few dials here. This controls, this big one controls my headphone volume, and I have levers over here which you can't see that control the amplitude for up to 6 different audio channels that get merged into the MacBook Pro, and then sends it out over to those 3 social networks. Yep. We're in a digital age, like it or not. Yeah. Here's my car key. Right here. I have my passport card on one side of my car key. Just got it renewed from the State Department. And then inside of here is, you can see it's like the lighting. You can see a black card. That's the key to the car. When you get the car, they hand you 2 of these. Just the thing that's inside there. It's just a card that says Tesla on it. And there's no writing on it. There's no names on it. There's no digits. It looks like a blank credit card. Exact same size, physical size as a credit card. But it gives you locks and unlocks and gives you access to the electronics in the car. You pair the card with your iPhone, which is right over here doing the counting, and your key, your phone is your key. You hear that on their videotapes. Your phone is your key. Yep. But if your phone runs out of juice, whenever I drive, I put this in my back pocket, because if your phone runs out of battery, or if you forgot your phone in the restaurant, or if you forgot your phone in your office on top of your desk and you forgot it and you didn't want to walk all the way back and go get it, you can unlock the car with this doodad. I got my ID in the front of it, picture ID, so that if I were to hand this to a valet, he would be able to get in and out of the car while I'm having, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if I choose to valet my car, which I'm not a big valet guy. I'd rather, my doctors have signed a form that allows me to have, handicap parking. So I have a handicap doodad, which you hang, I slip it in right where your rear view mirror is. So required by law, you got to hang the handicap thingy so that the police can see, that you are you have a current handicap sticker registered with the state of Florida or Palm Beach County. I think it's probably county by county. Anyway, so I have one of those. And that's relatively close to the front door of either the grocery store or, the restaurants or whatever. So I don't need the valet. Now, if it was torrential rain, I guess, you get under the portico of a fancy restaurant. And, and then get out of the car. Give this thing to the valet guy. And then you know who gave it to him, because it's got my name and actually it doesn't have an address on it, but it identifies me very specifically with information that comes right off the passport. We have brand new passports. All we need is someplace to go. We're all ready to travel. We just don't have any travel plan. I sent it off and, we got it back, within 4 weeks. It was pretty quick. They said 6 to 8 weeks. We got it in 4 weeks, maybe 4.5 weeks. It was much faster, than I thought it would be. Because we sent it, I think we sent it out in January and we got it before February. This is February 1st, and we've already gotten it. So I guess it was less than 4 weeks. There was a court case that went all the way to Supreme Court. This is the Federal Appeals Court. Strikes down a ban on handguns sales to 18, 19 and 20-year-olds. It's saying you got to be 21 to buy a handgun in certain jurisdictions. And I think the case actually went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that you cannot ban sales of handguns to people that are 18, 19, and 20 years old. And they have all kinds of reasons. They went back into the Fourth Amendment, I think, the Second Amendment, all these, I think mostly the second, the right to bear arms, coupled with the fact that, if 18 years old is the year old said, oh, there it is. That's what I was looking for before. That's iPhone 17. I'll get back to it. If you can go in the military and fight for your country, which you're, issued a handgun and a rifle, then you should certainly be able to come out of the military and go buy a handgun and a rifle, in any, legal store all over the country. You can't ban it, for access for 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. So any of those states that have passed laws and regulations saying you got to be 21 to own a handgun or a rifle, that is unconstitutional. They cannot ban you because of the Second Amendment and so forth. Yeah. All right, here's the iPhone 17. New features are coming later this year. See how thin it is? They put it up in the clouds. It's really thin. And they made the lines as thin as the number 17 in the clouds there. And they said this fall, the iPhone lineup is getting a brand new model, the iPhone 17 Air, which is a thinner form factor than the traditional iPhone 17. It's going to have a 6.6-inch screen, which is a new screen size, which is like halfway between the 6.3-inch screen and the 6.9-inch screen, which is on the jumbo model. So now you can just, lose 3 millimeters in diagonal measure, which is, less than 1/4 of an inch. But you have a nice thin form factor, and the screen is just slightly smaller, but it'll fit in your pocket better, and you have plenty of screen real estate. And it's 3 millimeters bigger than the non-max screen, which is 6.9 inch. So when you go from the 6.3 inch to 6.9 inch, that's a fairly decent size difference. So the air is going to get, just be 3 millimeters shorter in diagonal measure. And that should tempt, according to this little write-up here, this fresh form factor that could tempt a lot of Pro Max users. And they have 7 new features that are coming to the MacBook, the iPhone Air, iPhone 17 Air. And it's going to be thinner. It's going to be 5.3 millimeters thin instead of 8.5 millimeters. So you're coming in, to really a thin form factor. Similar to the thickness of this iPad I got right here. This is probably 5 or 6, but you can see how thin this iPad is. It's really thin. See how thin it is? Very thin. Compared to these MacBook Pros, these old ones I have, that are 8 or 9 millimeters thick. The new form factor for the iPad is on the thin side. There we go. I was looking all over for that. So we have a crash. That we have a second crash. Here's a helicopter pilot, and this Black Hawk. The way I look at it, when a jet airliner is coming in at like a 6-degree, angle, he's coming down out of the sky from a cruising altitude of 20 or 30,000 feet. And he's flying into Washington, D.C. He's on a glide path, about probably 6 or 7 degrees coming down. And when he starts, spinning down the engines, that can be rotating, big fan jet engines that can probably spin up to 20,000 RPM. When they're taking off with a lot of thrust and power. So for them to land, they got to spin those engines down quite a bit to probably half the rotational velocity of the engines. And when you step on the gas, so to speak, and you want to accelerate, it takes a while, like 10 seconds or so, for those engines to spin up and create enough thrust to take that plane out of the 6-degree decline so that it doesn't land on the runway. Let's say it's, the pilot is looking straight at the runway and a little peripheral vision, and he's watching, so you don't want to crash into somebody that's inappropriately on the runway. Now, when when the air traffic controllers tell you that it's clear to land on runway, 30, let's say, or 20, whatever the runway number was in Washington. He's got himself all lined up. His engines have spun down, and the flaps are down, and he's, gliding into landing on the runway. So he's in a vulnerable spot, if you will. Landing is the first most dangerous part of the trip because you're vulnerably losing momentum. You've got two powerful engines, but you got them down to 30% of instead of 80 or 90%, which is full power. They have a lot of thrust, but when you spin them down, they're slowing down from 400 or 500 miles an hour to like 160 miles an hour. 120 is probably stall speed, where it just drops out of the sky because there's not enough wind traveling over the wings to give it enough lift to keep it off the ground, if you will. So so when you get anywhere near that 120 mile an hour forward speed, you're approaching the stall speed. Well, the speed is, the safe speed for landing, for a middle-sized jet that can hold 80 or 90 people. It had like 64 people in the jet, including 2 pilots, 2 crew, and 60 passengers, fee-paying passengers. So the plane is coming in, they got clearance to land, in runway 30 or wherever it was. And they wanted to land at runway 1, which is the longest runway. But, they said, no, move over to the 30, which is a different angle in that whole airport, acreage. And the runway numbers are basically compass settings. Where runway 22, for example, is really, 322 degrees, as the 360 would be straight up and down, or 0, so they call it, runway 1, which is basically the compass needle straight up and down. But no, they wanted this, runway 20 or 30, I forget which. So he's coasting in. His plane is vulnerable. He said, an equilibrium, with a bias towards floating downwards, because the amount of air and the amount of thrust, which is probably 30%, on the power lever of the engines, and the flaps are down so that the wings will accumulate enough lift, even at, but particularly in slow speed. So the flaps are down, the engines are spun down, and he's vulnerably, in a slightly negative equilibrium state, so he can just float right on the runway. And then when he gets on the runway, he steps on the brakes. He puts the reverse thrusters in place, which makes the air that's coming out of the back end of the engine to be cupped forward, So got a lot of air blowing forward to help, reduce the speed of the airplane from 100 and, so by the time you touch down on the runway, you're probably going 140 miles an hour. Remember, 120 is stall speed. So you don't want to exactly get there. Now, you'll get there real quickly because as soon as you touch down on the runway, you start applying brakes. And you go from 120 to 110, and then 60 miles an hour, and then 30 miles an hour. And at 20 or 30 miles an hour, that allows you to navigate around the various driveways that can lead you to your gate to let off the 60 passengers you got, at gate 43 or whatever. But, the plane never got to landing because when it was at about 330 feet, whoosh, this Black Hawk runs right into it. The Black Hawks are supposed to be under 200 feet, but it was at 350 feet when it made contact with the airliner. So my guess is when this is all done is that the military is going to be charged with, the crash. Someone is responsible. So it's either the pilots of the airline or the pilots of the Black Hawk. And the Black Hawk, number one, should not be crossing paths with, an airliner. And it's right there in front of you. So how can you miss it? Now, there's a lot of lights. Washington's got all kinds of, 6-story buildings with lights, and they're lit up, and and you can get, if you're not paying attention really good, you might not notice the fact that you got an airplane in front of you. But it's on your radar screen, and, it's, the tower was just not talking to that Black Hawk enough, because now we learn that the person that was supposed to be talking this airplane in with the person that was actually talking the airplane in and talking the Black Hawk. So he had 2 aircraft in his control that he was talking to on 2 different frequencies, because the military aircraft, the frequencies is in the UHF band, whereas the frequencies that are set up for, all the airlines and private pilots, and they're all on VHF frequency, which is a different spectrum. So the pilots from each of the craft cannot hear each other. They can only hear the tower. And from what specialists have said on air, they were not talking with enough language to the, they don't want to stay on air any longer than they have to, because, you have other aircraft in the area that are trying to talk to the tower. So you say what you have to say and then get off. You don't have long conversations, when you're talking your way in on a landing or a flight path that's anywhere near, the runways of a major national, international airport, for God's sakes. There are people flying in and taking off from all over the world, to meet with the headquarters of our government, and the, what do you call it, the Pentagon and the military, and, the Capitol, the Congress. You got 540 people flying in and out of the Capitol at any one time. Not all at the same time, but so there's a lot of air traffic. And at the White House and the White House staff, the Pentagon staff, Pentagon's got 30 or 40,000 people in the building, and you got all kinds of generals and, the secretary of this, and, anyway, seems to me the Black Hawk intercepted the airliner and crashed into it in error. They should be charged with the accident, not the airliner. The airliner is vulnerable. He's got permission and clearance to land, so he's landing. This Black Hawk shouldn't be anywhere near this aircraft that's put itself in a vulnerable pattern to glide into a runway. And he is, slow speed. His engines are spun down, so he doesn't have a lot of thrust on purpose. That's how they drop out of the sky and land on a runway. They have to back off on the engines, whether it's a jet engine or a propeller-driven, a jet prop, a ice engine prop, whatever. You spin down the engines or the propellers when you're trying to land, or else you're not going to drop out of the sky. You're just going to fly right by the airport. You're trying to land on the runway. So you make yourself vulnerable and you just float in, and it's a very precise floating in because you don't want to overshoot the runway because you only got 10,000 feet of runway. And you have to have enough room on the runway to brake, to slow the airplane down to 20 miles an hour so it can navigate, the driveways. So, they have to put the plane in a coasting situation where the engines are spun down, to minimal thrust. They come in at about a 6-degree angle, 6.0 degree angle, with nose down 6 degrees. That's pretty typical. If you're coming into an airport, where there's rocky mountains on either side, you might come in at a 7-degree nose down, which is a very vulnerable thing to do. But you got to fly over one mountain, get to the runway, and you have to stop or you're going to run into another mountain because the runway is in the valley. So you might come in at a 7-degree angle. This airport, you'd come in at a 6-degree angle. 6, 5, 6, 7, 6-degree angle. Yeah. And he was right on track. He was coming down at the right degree, so his wheels would touch down in the first 10% of the runway, and you'd have plenty of room when your wheels down to brake the airplane, even if you didn't use the reverse thrusters. That's the point where you want to have as much runway as possible, so you land on the front end of the runway. Now you can't come in too soon, or else your wheels are going to get in the mud, and that could louse up your landing gear or collapse it. So about 90% of the runway you want to so you don't have to your wheels can come down right on this part of the runway, and then you get the whole rest of the runway to apply your brakes for a nice, comfortable slowdown from 140 miles an hour, because you're coming off 400 miles an hour and you slow down your jet, you're out 40 or 50 miles and you start spinning down the engines. So you're coming in at this 5 or 6 degree angle, and you basically ghost, a controlled coast with about a 6 degree angle. And then right when you get almost wheels down, you float it up a little bit so you have a nice gentle landing, because you don't want to jounce your passengers around too much. You don't want to jam it into, American Airlines. It's more of a controlled crash. They come in real hard. They come in at a 7 or 8 degree angle, and that's their flight plan. They want those. They want wheels down as something you can feel. A lot of pilots like to float it right on the runway, so you can barely tell that your wheels down. Makes for a very comfortable landing. But as I remember, American Airlines has a different flight plan when you land, and you're trained to do it the way American Airlines tells you to do it if you want to be an American Airlines pilot. So they come down, they land hard. A lot of other airlines land as soft as possible, as soft as safe can be. Yeah. So we got changing the subject. Anyway, so I feel the Black Hawk interfered. The jet that is landing has the right of way. It's like a 4-way stop. Well, it's not a 4-way stop. It's a 2-way stop. So, stop signs on either side of the highway, which is the airspace necessary to land this aircraft. So anybody approaching has to stop. Now, a helicopter can stop. It doesn't have to continue on at 110 miles an hour, which is what it was cruising at. It can pull up, drop your altitude and, get down to 200 foot altitude and slow it down so you're not crossing in the path of this airliner that has the right of way. It's been given the right of way by the tower, and you should not be interfering. This is a peacetime. You're not supposed to be getting in the path of a jet airliner who is not in a position to really avoid you. It's flying in, and this rapid reacting Black Hawk just turned right into the airplane. Jesus. So when you get the flight recorders, you'll find out what was being said to the pilots of each of those aircraft. They're on 2 different sets of frequencies, so the planes could not hear each other, but the planes could hear back and forth to the tower separately on 2 different sets of spectrums. You wonder if at peacetime, the air traffic controllers can be talking on the same frequency that the airlines are on, so that because you got a lot of helicopter activity, in the Washington, D.C., the Reagan National Airport. So they could very easily install, a radio system within the Black Hawk, so that when it's at peacetime and dealing with civilian traffic controllers that they're all on the same frequency. 136.8. You turn it to 136.8, Captain whatever, and everybody's on the same frequency, so that they can hear each other. I said 136. You know why? Because my clock says 136.2. But the air traffic controller, they tell, change your frequency to 136, and there's a dial right up in their middle, and you rotate your frequency selector to 136, in the VHF band, and you talk to the tower, because as you fly from one area to another, each tower is telling you what frequency they want you on. And they're all on different frequencies, so they don't all talk over each other, And when you're flying from California to, Washington, D.C., you might go through and have to change your frequency, 6 or 8 times, because they sign you off to the next sector where you're flying through, and then they control, you really don't have a freelance steering of the airplane. The air traffic controllers tell you exactly where to go, and they tell you to, come in at 129 degrees, at 30,000 feet, and you stay at 30,000 feet. So they tell you the altitude that you need to be at, and they tell you the direction that you need to be at as you pass through the different traffic controlling zones. And we have enough air traffic so that you're always under someone's control. It's not like you get in the car and drive anywhere you want. The air traffic controllers literally control you. They control your altitude. They tell you to go, you're at 22,000 feet, change your elevation to 28,000 feet, at a heading of 129 degrees. And you've got to get your aircraft up to 8,000 feet, whatever they told you, and you better have your heading at 190 degrees. Because if you don't follow what the air traffic control towers tell you, they have your license number, and they report you to the FAA for violating flight controls. And if it's kind of like a speeding ticket, but it's speed and direction ticket. And if you do it too many times, they can void your license, and then you can't fly anymore, and then you don't have an income anymore, because American Airlines is going to ground you. If you can't fly, you can't earn. So you must do what the air traffic controllers tell you, because they have the planes, all different elevations, altitudes, and different directions, so that, if you cross one another, there's several thousand feet between you. And I'll say 2,000 or 5,000 feet, depending on whether you're over Wyoming, or you have to be a little more compact if you're flying, coming into the Atlanta airport, which is a huge airport with planes coming in from all kinds of directions. And sometimes they put you in circular patterns, and then step you down as it becomes your turn to land, at runway 15 or whatever. You just don't go to the Atlanta airport and just pick out any runway you feel like and just settle it down. No. You got to deal with your air traffic controller, because they're going to tell you exactly when you're going to land, at what runway you're going to land at. And in the meantime, this is what you're going to do. Yep. Phew. Oh boy. So, this is Saturday. Yesterday I was supposed to have a doctor's appointment. And of course I get there and they say, your primary care doctor, is not in the group. He was in the group in December, but not in the group in January. Now, and they didn't notice anybody. They don't tell you. You just find out when you're about to have a doctor's appointment. I mean, it's so primitive. I can't believe it. And I called the insurance company. I said, now you're sure that Dr. Lubin is my primary care doctor, because I'm going to get into that office, because I had an appointment in the first couple of days or in mid-January, whatever. I think it was January 7th. And they said, yeah, he's in there. Not a problem. And, I called customer service. I made a special, I set up all the insurance in early December and in late December, because I wanted to have it done for January 1. Anytime you screw with the insurance company, it's effective the next month, not the day when you made the call. So it's not 30 days away, it's the next calendar month it takes effect. So I couldn't have my doctor's appointment until, the first Friday in February, because 2 days ago on Thursday, I missed my appointment, talking to the insurance company and talking to the, what one would call the gatekeepers of the doctor's office. They won't let you in that door unless everything is copacetic with your insurance, unless you agree to pay for it out of pocket. I said, no, I'm not paying for it out of pocket. I have insurance. That's why we pay the premiums for that. And I'm new to Cigna, and for some reason or other, they took my doctor, they moved him out of the group. And my insurance agent didn't tell me they were moving him out of the group. I said, he's going to be in the group in January, right? He said, yes, sir. Well, guess what? They pulled him out of the group. So I'm going to ask my doctor if there's any changes that he's had in anything so that my insurance company would drop you from the group. Why would they do that? You have an idea why? That's why I missed my appointment. Because you're now considered a specialist, which, has a different pricing, for the insurance company. Because you were not accepted as my primary care doctor. The PCP. Primary care physician. PCP. Who's your PCP? Dr. Thomas Lubin. He's not in the group. And he has to be your primary care doctor in order for Medicare to accept the annual physical that you're about to do with him. That's what I'm going to hear next. Oh, God. Because Medicare requires an annual physical. And it has to be done by your primary care doctor. Well, since my doctor is not in the group, he's a specialist. He said Medicare is fine with a specialist doing your annual physical. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah. Look at this. February is shaping up to be an exciting month for 5 different shows. I'm looking at this thing right here. On, I wonder if I can get it. Yeah, I can get it. I should be able to get it right here. Let's flip it. Touch that. And I'm looking for Reacher. Page through quickly so you can see it. Rats. Paging through quite a bit, huh? Yeah. Shouldn't be that hard. Anyway, you can kind of see it on this one. Reacher, season 3 comes on in February. The 3rd season of Invincible. We've never seen any of that. What's going on with YouTube? Here's the Invincible. Here's the official trailer. We just recently, here's one that's the season. Gosh darn it. The K-drama. There it is. It's on YouTube, apparently. My Fault. That's another official trailer. This is all happening in. There's Reacher, the official trailer for season 3. Yeah, we've been watching it on YouTube. YouTube has turned out to be one of my favorite streaming channels. Oh, I gotta wait till February 20th before we see, the season 3 of Reacher. There's a list of all of them. February 3rd, we got a Spanish show. February 6th, we got Clean State and Invincible. February 11th, Broken Rage, a movie. February 14th, looks like a Latin show. February 20th, season 3 of Reacher. Yeah, we've been watching that one. On the 27th of February, you got House of David and more from Tom's Guide, whatever that is. Maybe it's a travel channel or something. Anyway, so a lot of stuff coming in February. And there's our guy, Reacher. Yeah. I'll do a print screen of that. And then it will show up in my photo album here. Shrink this down. It should come right in here eventually. Yipper. There's a story here. Here comes the Reacher. Bingo. There it is. So you can see what I was looking I need to, there we go. I need to crop this. There we go. So it fits the screen properly. There we go. And then we hit adjust and do that. And then do that. There we go. Hit the heart. Yeah. So now you can see the reacher thing that I was talking about. Royal Caribbean fixes a terrible part of the cruising experience. Oops. Let's get the, what is that? Royal Caribbean is my favorite cruise ship. The wonder of the seas. They have all these. It's a big sucker. Look at those. That is a big sucker. Yeah. They have a couple of big gyroscopes in there to keep that sucker straight up and down. You wonder how come it doesn't flop over? Because they have huge gyroscopes in two different directions. And when they're running, it keeps the thing straight up and down, and it keeps the ship from doing this. You don't want it doing this, and you don't want it doing this. So that smooths out the ride. Those gyroscopes go off, click off, which are powered by diesel engines. So if they run out of diesel, I think there's a backup for electric, so it can spin them off electric power. And if that doesn't work, I think they just stop. And when they spin down, that ship can tip over because it's got a high center of gravity. It's not an iceberg where it's got a little top and a big bottom underwater. No, it's got a little bit of water. It draws maybe 15 feet under the water. So that's like standing up on a skateboard. It can tip either way. Waiting in the guest services line can be a real drag on your cruising experience. That's the head of that paragraph. Royal Caribbean uses AI technology in a few different ways, and has to do with the food service, add-on purchases. Okay. Anyway, so now AI is rearing its ugly head in the cruise industry. And waiting in line for guest services, that certainly can be a problem. You're standing in line for a half hour. It's the annoying thing about some of these articles is they tease you with the headline of the article, and then they never answer the point that they're making in the headline. You read the whole article. I've just speed read it. Guest services isn't going away completely. Okay, well, they're going to use all kinds of techniques so you don't have to stand in line for guest services. They're going to handle your request by some means, which are undisclosed in this article. Anyway, so see, Royal Caribbean fixes a terrible part of the cruising experience. Now, what is that terrible part? They never say the terrible part of a cruising experience is standing in line for guest services. No, they don't say it. You got to read this carefully, this whole gall darn article, and they never answer the question that they started with. What cruising experience did they fix? and I've speed read it again. Yeah, I can do that. My mother taught me how to do that when I was a little whippersnapper on speed reading. Yep. Where you look at the whole paragraph and you just digest the whole paragraph just by looking at all of it. You don't have to have your eyes scanning every line. You just look at the whole thing and tell what's going on in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're using AI, I guess. That's the big deal. So, there we go. We have another print screen because it's Royal Caribbean Line, which is our favorite cruise ship. Yeah. I won a couple of cruises, sales contest. I was teaching digital photography at FAU, and then I was a part-time sales guy at Ritz Wolf Camera. Yep. And out of 7,000 salespeople all over the country, I was in the top 10 in that list. And that, if you're in the top 10 or top 12, I think the first time I won, they had 10. And then the second year, they gave trips to the top 12 out of 7,000. So you had to, you had to pay attention to selling cameras, which I did. Yeah. Sheesh. And I sold cameras like crazy, man. Yep. One of the contests was you had to sell Pentax, digital cameras. Pentax, which is a brand, they had Pentax film cameras. Well, Pentax had digital cameras. This is like 15 years ago or whatever. So whoever sold the most Pentax digital cameras, you got on the trip. There was 7,000 salespeople, and a few of them would bang away trying to, win this prize. And when I first started at Wolf Camera, so I started like in October. The sales contest already started, in the 1st of October, I think. I came into the store the first time. I was hired and all that. And so it was like October 21st or something. I'm making that up. But it was 3rd week in October, or the 4th week in October. And my manager comes up to me and he says, at the end of October, he says, "Jimmy, you're in the top 12. If you keep that up for the next 3 months, you're going to win a all expense paid trip on Royal Caribbean Lines down the whole west coast of Mexico. They're going to fly you to LA." And I said, "Are you kidding me? I didn't even know there was a contest. I just started." So his name was Tom James. I said, "Tom, I just got here. What sales contest?" He says, "It's in your drawer." I said, "What drawer? You haven't assigned me a drawer yet." So apparently the guy who left that I took the place of, was a drawer right under the register, which was my little cubby drawer, which you could, put a few things in there, a ham sandwich or whatever. And so, yeah, he said, "Yeah, you'll see a little sheet of paper, Dayglow, bright orange piece of paper, and typed on there is all the ingredients of this contest, the Pentax digital camera contest. No one's ever won it in the store or in the whole 9 southeastern United States. No one's ever been in the top 10. You're in the top 12, so you just gotta step up your sales a little bit. I just got here, so the few cameras that I sold, in the half a month of October, was enough to get in the top 12. And I said, "Holy crap!" I happen to like this little Pentax camera, so I did. I sold a lot of those as opposed to anything else because I liked them, and I, convinced my customers that I met with. They come in the door. You're on the up list. You rotate around, and so when it was my turn to pick the next customer coming in the door, I would go out there and shake his hand and her hand and introduce myself. I said, "What can I do for you today?" "Well, I was looking at some of these digital cameras." I said, "Oh, good. Come on over here. Let me show you some of the really nice, affordable digital cameras you can get these days." So I said, "You have something in mind, or are you open-minded? Don't really have a prejudice of one over the other?" So this little old lady says, "No, whatever. What do you think?" So I would tell her, I said, "Well, I teach digital photography over at FAU. So I'm really into this digital camera stuff. And I kind of like this one right here." I'd pick it off the shelf, put it in her hand. I said, "You look through that little peephole there, and you press the button, and the picture pops up right on this back window, and you can tell if you got the shot or not. If you jiggle the camera, or you got a picture of an elbow rather than a picture of Uncle Charlie." Yeah. And boy, I tell you, 9 out of 10 people would buy the camera I put in their hand. And of course, it was a Pentax sales contest, so I sold them Pentax. If we had it in the store, I sold them. And I sold a ton of them. Yeah. And of course, if you sell them the 3-year service policy, and you sell them an extra digital card, that the pictures get stored on, the little SIM card that goes in there. And so everything that gets rung up in the register gets included in the Pentax camera sale. So all the things related to that camera sale gets added up and tallied into your Pentax camera, because the Pentax camera is in the list of things that Mrs. Smith bought that day. The extra battery, the extra digital card, the camera case. That $600 sale all got rung up, and $600 was logged into my digital camera thingy for the contest. Not just the price of the camera, but everything that was on the slip. And of course, I would sell them everything that I could, because it was all good stuff. Particularly the 3-year extended warranty. If anything happens to the camera, they bring it in the store, we give them another one. And take the old camera and send it in somewhere. But usually, if they drop them in the sink of water, or they put any pressure on the lens, and you turn it on, this lens pops out. Well, if you interfere with that lens coming out, and you strip the gears that cranks out that lens, then it doesn't come out so well, or it doesn't come out at all. And, so You just bring the camera in, we give you another one. Because it's not worth spending the time trying to figure out how to fix it and wait for the parts and all that stuff. So they just basically pitch them. Anyway, so I sold the heck out of the service policy. 3 or 5 years. You know, a couple $100 for 3 years and an extra 100 more for 5 years. But for 5 years, they're going to have a brand new camera. Anything goes wrong with it, we just give you another one. 9 times out of 10. So that's how I won the camera contest. Because I sold everybody a lot of extra products on that ringing up of that camera. So that was like selling 3 cameras. A $200 camera, lady ended up with a $600 sale. So it's like selling 3 cameras or 2 cameras instead of 1. You know, with the add-ons. And they were, legitimate good add-ons. Like you gotta have an extra battery. You gotta have an extra digital card. You don't want to be out of commission because the battery ran out. So you keep one in the charger and you keep one in the camera. And you just keep swapping. And we always have a charged battery ready to go. When you run out the battery that's in the camera. And the digital card's the same way. You have one which you plug into your computer and the other one's in the camera. And you just keep swapping them. Yep. That's how I sold camera batteries and extra digital cards. And a $200 camera, the extra digital card is an extra $100. The battery is another $60. The extended warranty is, for a $200 camera, it might be $100 for a 3-year service extended warranty. Yep. Anyway, so a lot of new programs are coming out at the beginning of the year. Particularly February is a big month, apparently, for new here. Oh, here's the Royal Caribbean line thing I was talking about. Yep. Royal Caribbean fixes a terrible part of the cruising experience. And that's going into, the customer service part. When you got to stand in line waiting to talk to someone that's going to book you an excursion when the ship lands at some foreign port. Yeah. We weren't big on excursions. I'd get off the boat. We'd get off the boat and go into town in the restricted, safe areas. And sit at a bar and have cocktails, people watching, And then at 3 o'clock, we'd go back on the ship, avoid the 5 o'clock rush. Because at 5 o'clock, everyone wants to get in these little tender boats and go back and forth. So then you stand online waiting to get back on the ship. And if you don't get on the ship by 6, it pulls out and you're stuck in some foreign city with no way to get the hell out of Dodge. Yeah. Whew. And some of those, if you're going down the east coast, to get to Mexico on the Yucatan Peninsula, you got some pretty dangerous countries, that have ports of call. But you don't want to wander off into the dark alleyway in a foreign port of call. No. You want to stay right down the main road and keep an eye shot to the ship. You And you want to get on there before it starts floating away, because it ain't going to come out. It ain't going to come back for you. You have no way to get a hold of the ship anyway. They don't exactly have cell phone numbers, you know, in some of these dangerous countries. Colombia and, you know, Venezuela. Anyway, so let me check out. It's 2:40 in the afternoon. Thank you for spending the afternoon with what Jimmy thinks. And let's see. I might be able to. Yeah, I think I'll probably be back on the air tomorrow morning at around 9 o'clock. Yeah. Marilyn should be finishing up with the powwow and heading back here. So in the meantime, I'll chat with you guys and whoever's, you know, it's the Simulcast, broadcasting on 3 social networks at the same time, streaming in high definition TV. You can see me right here. It's like a podcast kind of thing. I have, 1,500 friends, 1,000, on the Facebook channel, and another 1,000 or so on between YouTube and Twitter. So it's a couple of thousand friends that are capable of, and anyone else that's, part of Facebook or YouTube. I think you can listen to what I say without having to be an official friend, so to speak. But please do. I've got, a whole bunch of, text messages that I answer periodically, all the time, actually. Yep. And here's my What's Jimmy Think text message thingy. But when you guys text message me on the show, it comes right down on the side panel of my, and then I can answer you. People have questions, disagree with what I'm talking about, or want to add to the conversation any way you see fit. Yep. You can either be part of the show or I'll answer you after the show. Either way. So, but and I've been teaching at FAU for 20 years, and all those folks, they know, guess what my handle is on Facebook Live, YouTube Live. FAU for you. The @ sign, FAU, the number 4, and then you. FAU for you. That's my handle. I got on there early, so all 3 networks as FAU for you. Yipper. So, if you like, please join me. Generally, I'm on between 9 and 9:15, except if I have a technical difficulty, and sometimes it's a little later, but it's not because I'm sleeping, because I'm up and moving around at 6:15. Oh yeah, I am not horizontal. I am vertical at 6:15 and later. So, but if the internet is down, or if I have some technical issue with my MacBook Pro, which is never, because it is super reliable. I have a MacBook Air. MacBook Air. So it's a MacBook Pro, but the thin thin version, no fans. You know, it's all encased in this solid aluminum shell that's machined. You know, it's a beautiful piece of equipment. You know, I cover it up with this right here because I don't need the keyboard to operate this broadcast. I just have a separate little mouse pad over here on the side. It's a black one, so you hardly even notice it. And I keep my right hand on that. My left hand is floating around here. Yeah, so I can basically control everything that goes on. And I have this iPad linked right into, you know, what's going on here. Yipper. So, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We'll talk about whatever pops up. I'll turn up the Epidemic Sound Instrumental, which is our royalty-free music. You all have a great afternoon. See you tomorrow.